It started as a joke. A harmless, impulsive, wine-fueled joke that I never expected to spiral into a full-blown, heart-thudding, soul-tangling disaster. I mean, I didn't plan on falling in love with my straight best friend. I didn't wake up that Sunday morning thinking, you know what would be fun? Tormenting myself emotionally for the next several months. But here we are. Her name is Blair. She's 6 inches taller than me, laughs too loudly, wears oversized hoodies and lip gloss like they're war paint, and thinks that bisexuality is cool as hell in theory, but also claims she's never caught the vibe from a girl. That girl being me. Her best friend. Her roommate. Her chaos magnet. We've lived together since sophomore year of college, now almost 2 years out of undergrad, and still sharing a tiny apartment filled with thrifted furniture, mismatched mugs, and enough shared memories to keep us stitched together for life. Or at least I thought that was the plan. Until she started talking about him. Jason. The new guy at her office. Tall, kind of boring, but with great arms. She'd been on 2 dates already, and I hated it more than I could admit. Not because Jason was a threat. No, he was the symptom. The reminder that she would always want something I couldn't be. So, I did something stupid. It was Saturday night. She was in her room, watching a baking competition and texting Jason hearts and cake emojis. I was on the couch, 3 glasses deep into cheap rose, scrolling through Twitter and trying not to spiral. And then it hit me. A prank. Something stupid to snap me out of it. A little text from a secret admirer. Anonymous. Harmless. I created a burner number. Typed the message. Paused. Rewrote it. You don't know me, but I've watched you for a long time. You light up every room you enter. You laugh like you're not afraid of anything. I think I'm falling for you. I hope someday you'll know me too. Cringy? Maybe. Over the top? Definitely. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. But she'd laugh, roll her eyes, ask if it was me. We'd joke about it for a day and move on. I hit send. 5 seconds later, I heard her phone buzz through the wall. 5 more seconds, and she burst out of her room like she'd seen a ghost. Oh my God, she said, wide-eyed, holding her phone like it might detonate. Look at this. I looked, pretended to be confused, raised my eyebrows. What the hell? I asked. Who is this? She whispered, reading it again, a smile creeping across her face. This is actually kind of romantic? I blinked. You're not freaked out? Freaked out? She repeated, sliding down next to me on the couch. Are you kidding? This is the most thrilling thing that's happened to me in weeks. Someone is obsessed with me. I love it. I laughed. Weak. Well, maybe it's Jason. She shook her head. Jason uses 0 punctuation and still calls me dude. This person, whoever they are, pays attention. I swallowed hard. So, what are you gonna do? She grinned. Find them, obviously. My stomach dropped. That's when I knew I'd made a mistake. Because Blair, my straight, oblivious best friend, was suddenly obsessed with the idea that someone loved her from afar. That someone saw her, really saw her. And I couldn't tell her it was me. Not now. Not when she was lying next to me in her oversized hoodie, biting her lip, rereading the message like it meant something. I hope it's someone I know, she murmured. Someone brave enough to finally say how they feel. And I sat there, silent, my heart screaming inside my chest. Because I had said it. Just not with my name. The morning after the text, I expected her to forget about it. Maybe mention it once while brushing her teeth, maybe scroll back to it with a sleepy smile and say something like, still funny, before laughing it off and moving on with her life. But Blair? She woke up with a mission. She made coffee with one hand and scrolled through her phone with the other, completely absorbed, rereading the message like it held the answer to the universe. She didn't even notice me sitting at the table until she looked up and said, "Do you think it's someone from the gym?" I nearly choked on my toast. What? The secret admirer, she said, sliding into the chair across from me and folding her legs underneath her like she always did. There's this girl who always offers me the cleaning spray after she uses the treadmill. Do you think it's her? I said carefully, you might be overthinking this. I'm not, she insisted, bright-eyed and completely oblivious to the fact that I was actively dying inside. I'm not saying it's serious. But that message wasn't just some copy-paste thing. Whoever wrote it, they see me. I swallowed hard. Or they're just messing with you. Her eyes narrowed. Do you know something? Nope, I said way too fast. Not a thing. You said that suspiciously fast. Well, maybe you're being suspiciously obsessed. That's not even a thing. It is now. She stared at me for a second, then leaned forward, elbows on the table. Okay, real talk. If you had a secret admirer, would you want to know? I pretended to think about it. Depends. Are they hot? Of course. Then yeah, maybe. She grinned. Exactly. I felt like I was sinking. Watching her get excited about this, about me, even if she didn't know it, should have felt good. But it didn't. It felt like a slow, stretching ache, the kind that wrapped around your ribs and refused to let go. Because I knew how this ended. She'd either find out it was me and laugh it off, or worse, she'd be angry, hurt. She'd ask why I lied, why I tricked her, and I'd be standing there with my heart in my hands and nothing to say that could fix it. Or she'd never find out. She'd keep searching, keep imagining this fantasy version of love, and slowly fall for someone who didn't exist, all while I sat across from her pretending I wasn't the one who wanted her to look at me like that. She picked up her phone again. I'm going to text back. Blair. Why not? If they're brave enough to say something, I should respond. Right? What are you going to say? Something subtle, flirty, open-ended. Like, whoever you are, you've definitely got my attention. I blinked. That's not subtle. That's basically a marriage proposal. Too much. Just a tad. Okay, fine, she said, already typing. How about, I've never had a secret admirer before. I'm flattered. And curious. She looked up. Better? Blair. Too late. Sent. I covered my face with my hands. This is going to end in flames. You're so dramatic. You're being stalked and encouraging it. It's not stalking if it's romantic. That's literally the definition. She ignored me, staring at her screen with anticipation like she expected fireworks to go off at any second. My own phone buzzed a moment later, from the burner number. I'd forgotten to silence it. I grabbed it before she noticed, heart slamming. Her message was there, glowing like a siren. I've never had a secret admirer before. I'm flattered. And curious. Curious. About me. I should have ignored it. Deleted it. Let the silence speak for itself. But my fingers moved before my brain caught up. You should be. I've loved you longer than you know. I hit send. My stomach flipped. And then I looked up to see her watching me. Not suspicious. Not angry. Just watching. You're acting weird, she said. No, I'm not. You never text this early. Maybe I'm working on a side hustle. Like what? Crime. She raised an eyebrow. Okay. But if you end up in jail, I'm not bailing you out unless you promise to tell me who my admirer is. I forced a smile. Deal. She stretched and stood, heading toward her room, phone still in hand. I'm gonna find out, she said sing-song. Whoever she is, she stopped in a hallway, then turned back. Do you think it's a she? I froze. What? I mean, she said, shrugging. The message felt kind of feminine. Like soft. Romantic. You know. I stared. You think a girl wrote it? Maybe. I wouldn't be mad about it. My pulse thudded. You wouldn't. No, she said. I mean, girls are hot. She disappeared into her room before I could answer. I stood there, stunned, phone clenched in my hand, heart threatening to punch a hole through my chest. She wouldn't be mad. Girls are hot. She didn't say she liked girls. But she did not say it either. And she hadn't deleted the message. She'd replied. To me. Maybe this wasn't a dead end. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one starting to wonder what it would feel like if we crossed that line. And for the first time since I sent that stupid text, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel. Hope. For the next few days, it became an obsession. Not mine, hers. Blair was on a full-fledged investigation, armed with a notebook she labeled the admirer files in big, bubbly letters and a ridiculous amount of caffeine.
She made lists.
She had theories. She cross-referenced my schedule and hers with mutual friends, co-workers, acquaintances from her gym, her yoga studio, even the girl who worked at the sandwich shop she swore once winked at her. I laughed it off, smiled, played along, but inside I was dying. Every time she leaned over the kitchen counter to show me a new theory, every time she narrowed her eyes and whispered, "Okay, but what if it's her?" My heart did this awful thing, tightened and flipped like it couldn't decide whether to implode or run. Especially because sometimes, when she was deep in her theories, she said my name. Jokingly. Lightly. "What if it's you?" she'd say, grinning like the idea was the most absurd thing in the world. "You're always watching me. You do know my coffee order by heart. Plus, you're romantic." In that tortured, artist way. I'd roll my eyes, scoff, but my fingers would twitch. My chest would burn. I couldn't breathe when she joked like that, because the truth was so close. It was in her hands. It was in the tone of her voice. And still, she didn't see it. She didn't really look. And I didn't know how to handle that. I thought I could let it go. I told myself it would pass. That she'd get bored. That Jason, Mr. Tall and Boring, would resurface and distract her. But instead, something happened I didn't expect.
She started to change.
Subtle things at first. Her eyes lingered longer when I spoke. Her laugh came softer when we were alone. She started brushing her hand against mine as we walked, not quite holding it, but not moving away either. Then she started texting me from her room, even though I was just across the hall. One night, I got a message that simply said, "If it was you, I wouldn't be mad." I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. I didn't reply. I didn't know how to reply. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She was all smiles and waffles, bouncing around the kitchen in my hoodie, humming like the text hadn't pulled a string deep in my gut and left it trembling all night. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that she was just playing, that she liked the idea of the attention, not the reality. But I couldn't shake it, especially not the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Like I was becoming something else in her eyes. Like I wasn't just her best friend anymore. One night, it all came crashing down. We were watching a movie on the couch, some romantic comedy she'd seen a dozen times. She was curled up next to me, our legs touching, her head on my shoulder. I could smell her shampoo, feel her breath against my skin. And then, suddenly, she whispered, "I think it is you." I froze. What? She sat up just a little, enough to look at me. Her face was flushed. Her voice was small. The admirer. "I think it's you." I tried to laugh. "You think I sent you anonymous love texts?" "It makes sense," she said, eyes searching mine. "You're the only one who knows me like that. You say the kind of things I read in that message. And you've been acting weird ever since I got it." "I've always been weird. Not like this." I swallowed hard. So, what if it was me? Her breath hitched. Her gaze dropped to my lips. "Then, I'd want to know why you couldn't just say it to my face." I sat up fully now, heart hammering. "Because you're straight, Blair. Because you flirt like it's breathing but never mean it. Because I've loved you since we were 19, and you've never once looked at me like you wanted me back." "That's not true," she whispered. "What?" "I don't know what I am," she said, voice breaking. "But I've been thinking about you. A lot. Since the text. Even before. I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know if it was real. And now," I asked, barely able to speak. "Now I don't care if I don't have the right words for it. I just know I want you. I want you." Her hand found mine. Warm. Shaking. "Is it you?" she asked again. "Tell me the truth." And I couldn't lie anymore. I pulled her closer. Pressed our foreheads together. "Yes," I breathed. It's me. She didn't move for a second. Then she kissed me.
Slow. Soft. Sure.
And my entire world split open. Her lips were warm and uncertain, but when she deepened the kiss, when her hands slid into my hair and she moaned softly into my mouth, there was no doubt left. Not for either of us. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and stunned, she looked at me with wide, glassy eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I was scared, I said. That you'd laugh. That you'd hate me. That I'd lose you. You never could, she whispered, brushing her fingers over my cheek. Even when I didn't know what this was, it was always you. You're in everything. My coffee, my laundry, my thoughts. You've always been the one. I didn't cry.
Not then.
But when she curled into me later that night in bed, her bare skin pressed against mine, her voice sleepy against my collarbone as she whispered, "You've ruined me for anyone else." The tears came. Quiet, shaking, joyful. Because what started as a joke, just a stupid, desperate prank, had given me something I never thought I'd have. Her. The morning after she kissed me was unlike any morning before it. Not because the world had changed, but because she had. Blair wasn't avoiding it. She wasn't pretending it hadn't happened or laughing it off like some drunken mistake. She was lying in my bed, half naked and impossibly close, tracing circles on my stomach with her fingertips like touching me had always been second nature. Her leg was slung over mine, her breath steady and warm against my skin, and when I turned to look at her, her eyes were already open. Watching me. "You don't snore," she murmured. Disappointed. I teased, my voice husky from sleep. "A little," she whispered, grinning. "But you do talk in your sleep." I raised an eyebrow. "What did I say?" "You said my name," she said, and something in her expression shifted. It wasn't teasing anymore. It was soft, tender,
Real.
like you were afraid I wasn't going to answer.
I didn't say anything.
I just brushed a piece of hair from her cheek and kissed her, slow and deep, until she melted into me again. We didn't leave bed that day. We barely touched our phones. We made out like teenagers and talked like lovers and stared at each other like something brand new was blooming between us, because it was. Every wall she'd built between us had cracked open the night she kissed me. And now there was no going back. That evening, curled together on the couch, she reached for my hand without looking and laced her fingers through mine. "When did it start?" she asked quietly. "When did you know you felt something for me?" I laughed softly. "Which time?" "You mean there were multiple?" "Blair, I've been in love with you since the day you brought me soup when I had the flu and refused to leave, even when I looked like a swamp creature." She chuckled, resting her head on my shoulder. "That was years ago." "I know. So you've been in love with me all this time?" "More than I wanted to be." She went quiet, and for a second I wondered if I'd said too much. But then she whispered, "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because you were straight." "I thought I was," she said so softly I almost didn't hear it.
But now.
"Now," she said, sitting up and looking into my eyes, "I'm not so sure I've ever known myself the way I thought I did." "You don't have to define it," I told her. "Not for me." "But I want to," she said. "Because what I feel for you, it doesn't scare me."
It confuses me, yes.
"But it feels like something I want to protect. Something I don't want to lose." "You won't," I promised. "Not if we're honest. Not if we go slow." "I don't want slow," she said, voice trembling. "I want you." The next few days felt like a dream. We didn't rush into anything. We still cooked dinner like always. Still watched bad reality TV and bickered over laundry and laughed over inside jokes that only made sense to us. But the difference was in the way she looked at me now. In the way she leaned in and kissed my cheek for no reason. In the way her hand found mine under the table without hesitation. But the world didn't stop for us. And outside our apartment, things started shifting. It began with our friends. Emily was the first to notice. We were out for brunch, Blair and I sitting closer than usual, sharing bites off each other's plates, when Emily's eyes narrowed. "Are you too?" she trailed off, looking between us. Blair stiffened beside me. I stayed quiet. Are we what? She asked casually. Too casually. You know, Emily said, tilting her head.
Together.
Dating. You're glowing like two people having a lot of sex or a lot of feelings. Can it be both? I blurted before I could stop myself. Blair laughed, but there was a note of tension in her shoulders that didn't fade even as the conversation moved on. Later, as we walked home, she was quiet. Are you okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Then, after a pause, it's just this is still so new. I didn't expect anyone to see it so fast. We don't have to tell anyone if you're not ready, I said. But I'm not going to hide how I feel about you. She stopped walking. I don't want to hide either. I'm just not sure what I'm doing. I've never been with a girl before. What if I'm just figuring things out and I end up hurting you? You're allowed to figure things out, I said gently. Just don't shut me out while you do it. I won't, she whispered. And I believed her. Until I didn't. Because 2 days later, she pulled away from a kiss without warning. She looked at me like I was someone else, like something had shifted inside her, and she didn't know what to do with it. I need some time, she said. Time for what? I asked, heart already sinking. To think.
To breathe.
To make sure this is real, and not just a reaction. To what? To you loving me for so long, she said. To me finally waking up and realizing I might feel the same. You do feel the same, I said. You said it. I want to, she said. But I'm scared. So am I. That's not the same. And then she left.
Just like that.
Backed out of our apartment like it had become a place she didn't recognize. And I sat on the floor, heart cracked, wondering if I'd ruined everything just by giving her the truth. I didn't hear from her for 2 days. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I replayed every second, every kiss, every look, wondering where I went wrong, what I missed. And then, on the third night, just after midnight, I heard the front door open. She stepped inside, soaked from the rain, hoodie clinging to her frame, eyes wide and red-rimmed. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I didn't move. Why did you leave? Because I thought I needed space to figure out what this was. But all it did was remind me that I don't want to be without you. Blair, you were never a joke, she said. Not the text, not the kiss, not any of it. I was afraid that if I let myself love you, everything would change. But the truth is, it already did. You don't have to say it if you're not ready. I am, she said, walking over to me, kneeling in front of me. I love you. I exhaled like I hadn't been breathing for days. Say it again. I love you, she whispered. I've loved you since I got that stupid text. Maybe longer. Maybe since you first yelled at me for using the wrong laundry setting. I laughed, then cried.
She held me.
We stayed on the floor for hours, wrapped around each other like we were afraid the world might pull us apart again. But it didn't. And when morning came and the sun rose and she kissed me softly and said, "This time, I'm not running," I finally believed her. Being loved in secret was easy. Being adored behind closed doors, kissed in the quiet dark, touched when no one else was watching, that was safe. That was something we could control. But loving someone in the light, in front of the world that had already written its own rules for how things should look, how women should behave, who they should want, that was something else entirely. And Blair, even with all her courage, even with all the ways she surprised me, still wasn't used to being seen like this. The first test came sooner than either of us expected.
Her mother was in town, just for the weekend.
A quick stopover on her way to a conference. We hadn't talked about it, not really. We'd been living in this soft, untouchable space since she came back, sleeping in the same bed, brushing teeth together, cooking side by side like we were married already. She kissed me in the mornings now, touched my waist as she passed me in the kitchen, grabbed my hand when she laughed. But she still hadn't called me her girlfriend out loud. Still hadn't said what we were to anyone else. And when her mom called that Saturday morning and asked to have brunch, just us girls, sweetie, like old times, I saw something flicker in Blair's eyes that hadn't been there since the beginning.
Doubt.
You should come, she said, curling a piece of hair behind her ear. I mean, if you want to. Do you want me to? I asked, watching her closely. I do. But there was a pause.
A breath.
A hesitation. Then I'll be there, I said. Whatever happens, I've got you. The restaurant was cute.
Cozy.
A little too bright for the mood I felt building in my chest. Blair wore a soft beige sweater, her lips glossy, her hair loose and curling over her shoulders. I knew the second we walked in she wasn't ready to say it.
Not yet.
Her mom smiled when she saw us. Greeted me like she always had. Talked about work, about her new apartment, about how Boston winters were so much worse than she remembered. I sipped my coffee and tried not to feel the distance growing between us in real time. Blair didn't touch me once during the meal. Not a brush of a hand. Not a glance that lasted longer than it should have. She didn't even sit close. And when her mom went to the restroom, I finally leaned over and whispered, "You haven't looked at me since we got here." She blinked. "What?" "Yes, I have." "You haven't. This isn't easy for me, okay? I didn't ask you to make a speech, Blair. Just look at me like I still mean something to you." Her face softened. "You do. Then why do I feel invisible right now?" "Because I'm scared," she said, voice low, almost breaking. "She's not like your mom. She's traditional. She's never even talked about stuff like this. Are you ashamed of me?" "No," she said quickly. "God, no. I'm terrified of losing you. That's why I can't figure out how to hold you in public yet." I nodded, pulling my hand back. "Okay. Please don't shut down on me." "I'm not shutting down. I'm protecting myself." Her mother returned, smiling, none the wiser. The rest of brunch passed in a blur of polite conversation and unsaid truths. And when we walked home in silence, I knew something had to give. She curled up on the couch the second we got in. I didn't sit beside her. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, heart aching. I can't do this if it's only behind closed doors. She looked up at me, eyes wide. "I know. You said you loved me." "I do." "Then show me." "I will," she said, voice shaking. "But it has to be on my terms." "Blair, please," she whispered. "Don't give up on me yet." So I didn't. I waited, gave her space, let her process. It was 3 days later when she surprised me. We were walking through the park near our apartment, hands tucked into our coats, not touching, not speaking. She stopped suddenly, turned toward me and said, "Kiss me."
What?
"Right here."
Right now.
"In public." "Are you sure?"
No, she said.
"But I want to be." I stepped forward, cupped her face, and kissed her. It was slow, open-mouthed, full of tension and need, and something that cracked wide open the moment her hands gripped my coat and pulled me closer. When we broke apart, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes wide and shimmering. "You're not a secret," she whispered. "Not anymore." From that day forward, something changed. We didn't have to be loud. We didn't make declarations. But we stopped hiding. She held my hand at the coffee shop. She called me babe in front of our friends. She introduced me to her mother again, this time with my hand in hers and her voice steady. "Mom, this is Riley. She's not just my best friend. She's the person I love."
Her mom was quiet,
but kind, and eventually supportive. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. We still had fights, still got confused, still stumbled over the labels and the fear. But we kept choosing each other, over and over again. And late at night, when she curled into me and whispered, "I can't believe it started with a stupid text," I'd kiss her forehead and say, "Best prank I ever pulled." Because the truth was, I hadn't just found love. I'd found a partner. Someone who saw every part of me. The funny, the terrified, the reckless, the brave, and still chose me. Every day. And that wasn't a joke. That was everything. Coming out as a couple changed everything and nothing at all. Our apartment still smelled like coffee and laundry. She still left her shoes in the hallway. I still stole her hoodies, and she still pretended to be annoyed every time she caught me wearing one. But now, the space between us was different. Tighter, warmer, honest. There was no hiding, no hesitation when she reached for my hand in public, no half smiles when someone caught us leaning too close. And yet, being known didn't erase the fear. It didn't mean the world suddenly approved. And Blair, she was learning that the hard way. Her job was the first to notice. She worked in a marketing firm, mostly women, young, liberal, loud. The kind of place where rainbow pins were handed out every June and allyship was plastered across their social feeds. But theory didn't always match practice. On Monday, she wore one of my rings. Just a thin silver band. Simple.
Subtle.
But one of the girls from her team saw it, and by lunch, the whispers had started. I didn't know Blair was dating anyone. Is she? Is that her roommate? Honestly, good for her.
But also, wow.
Never saw it coming. Blair didn't tell me right away. I found out when she came home late that night, tense, quiet, her eyes darker than usual. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her boots, and walked straight into the kitchen. Wine, she asked. You don't usually offer. You just drink it out of the bottle. Well, tonight I'm feeling classy. What happened? She poured 2 glasses, set one down in front of me, and leaned against the counter. Everyone at work knows about us. And that's a bad thing?
No, she said too fast.
Then paused. I mean, not exactly. I just wasn't ready for it to be gossip. For people to look at me like I've been lying. Like I'm some late-blooming cliché. Blair. I stood, walked over, took the glass from her hand, and set it aside. You're not a cliché. You're someone who figured herself out later than most people, maybe. But that doesn't make your love any less real.
I know that, she said.
But it still hurts. Then let it hurt. I'm not going anywhere. She stared at me for a long time, then slid her arms around my waist and buried her face in my neck. Promise. Always. Things weren't perfect after that. People asked questions. Some well-meaning, some intrusive. Her aunt texted her a link to a Christian blog post titled How to Support Your Gay Loved One Without Supporting the Sin. Her dad, when she finally told him, went completely silent on the phone for 5 full minutes before saying, okay, and changing the subject. She cried after that call. Not because he'd screamed, but because he hadn't said anything at all. She wanted a reaction. A fight. Anything but the empty space he gave her. Maybe he just doesn't know what to say, I told her. Yeah, she said, wiping her eyes. But it still feels like he's disappearing. I didn't have an answer. I just held her. And that night, when she turned into me in bed and whispered, "You're the only part of this that feels safe," I kissed her and promised to stay soft for her, even when the rest of the world wasn't. Our friends were better. Most of them were thrilled. Emily cried. Logan brought us rainbow cupcakes. Blair's old college roommate sent a voice note screaming, "I knew you were in love with her." And maybe that helped. A little. The more people saw us, the more she started to breathe again. She stopped flinching when people said, "Your girlfriend." She started calling me that herself. Out loud. And once, when we were standing in line at the grocery store, she turned to me and said, "You're it for me. You know that, right?" I just smiled. I'm trying really hard not to cry in front of the organic spinach, but yes. She laughed and kissed me, right there in front of the cashier. But the high didn't last, because the next test was bigger. Worse. Her ex-boyfriend Jason reappeared. And not in a friendly, "Hey, how are you, no hard feelings" kind of way. In a drunk texting, awkward DM sliding, "I miss you, I still think about you" kind of way. She didn't reply.
Not the first time.
Or the second. But then he showed up outside her office. Flowers. Stupid grin. "Hey," he said, as she stepped onto the sidewalk. "Long time. What are you doing here?" "Just thought we could talk." "There's nothing to talk about. Come on, Blair. You've had your fun, haven't you?" Her blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" "The girl thing," he said, shrugging. "I get it. You were confused. But I'm here now. You don't have to prove anything anymore." She slapped him. Hard. Walked away without another word. Came home shaking. He said I was confused, she told me, pacing the living room. Like you're some phase I'm gonna outgrow. I'm not a phase, I said. I know that, she snapped. But he doesn't. And there are more of him out there. People who'll never take us seriously. Who'll always think I'm going to wake up and decide I want men again. I stood. Then let's prove them wrong. Every day. Every kiss. Every time you hold my hand in public. Every time you say my girlfriend loud enough for someone like Jason to hear. That's proof. Not for them, for you. Because you deserve to take up space. You deserve to love out loud.
She broke then. Tears. Rage. Fear.
She fell into my arms and said, I love you so much it scares me. Good, I whispered. That's how you know it's real. And from that day on, she stopped apologizing. She posted pictures of us online. She kissed me on the sidewalk. She wore my hoodies and didn't care who saw. She corrected people when they called me her roommate. And one night, as we danced in our living room, bare feet and soft music playing, she whispered, I used to think I was straight. And then I met you. And now I know I was just waiting. For what? I asked, spinning her. For someone who saw me before I saw myself. The first time Blair called me the love of her life, it wasn't during a candlelit dinner or a dramatic kiss in the rain or any of those moments you see in movies. It was during an argument. A stupid, loud, painfully honest argument about dishes. You never rinse them, I snapped, holding up a glass with a smear of something orange crusted at the bottom. It's not that hard. I was running late, she shouted back, hands on her hips, wet hair dripping onto the floor because she'd just stepped out of the shower and came out to defend herself in a towel. Every time I ask you to do one thing, just one, you forget, or you rush, or you make some excuse. I'm doing my best, Riley. Jesus. Sorry, I'm not perfect. I never asked for perfect. I asked for respect. You have it, she yelled, her voice cracking. You're the love of my life, and you're screaming at me about a freaking smoothie glass. Silence.
Thick.
Unforgiving. She blinked, like she hadn't meant to say it. Like the words had escaped without permission. Her lips parted, her eyes wide, her towel clutched tighter around her like it might protect her from what she'd just confessed. What did you say? I whispered. She swallowed. Say it again. You're the love of my life, she said, softer now. And I hate that our first real fight is about something so stupid because I don't want to lose you over dishes. I don't want to lose you ever. I stared at her, dripping, furious, vulnerable, and I realized in that moment that love wasn't made in perfect lighting or carefully planned gestures. Love was made in messy apartments, during petty fights, in the way you said someone was your everything while your voice shook and your heart pounded and your mascara was still smudged from last night. I walked over, took the glass from her hand, set it down on the counter, and wrapped my arms around her damp, warm body. Then don't lose me, I murmured. I'm not going anywhere. Not over dishes. Not over anything. She buried her face in my neck and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since the moment we started shouting. We made up right there in the kitchen, soaked towel and all, her arms tight around me, her apology whispered against my collarbone. You make me wild, she said. You make me real. After that, something shifted between us. Not in a bad way. In a grown way. We stopped walking around each other like we were still afraid of the weight of what we'd built. We started fighting better. Loving better. She rinsed the dishes without being asked. I stopped keeping score. We stopped saying if this works and started saying when we get there. One night, I caught her looking at engagement rings online. She didn't even try to hide it. Just turned the screen toward me and said, You like gold or silver better? I blinked. What? Nothing serious. Just wondering. That's not a just wondering kind of question, Blair. Fine, she said, smirking. I was fantasizing. About our wedding. About walking down an aisle in a dress you won't stop adjusting. About kissing you in front of everyone we know. About us being stupidly in love, with no reason to hide it. That's the hottest thing you've ever said. You're not crying, are you? No, you're crying. Shut up. Do you want a fall wedding? Do you want a fall wedding? I want you, she said, turning serious. Every season, every version, every damn dish you forget to rinse, every hoodie you steal. I want all of it. And I believed her. Because Blair had gone from laughing off the idea of being with a woman to dreaming about a life with me, and not once did she flinch. But love, even the good kind, doesn't happen in a vacuum. And right when we'd finally started thinking about forever, the past came knocking. It was a Saturday.
Warm. Easy.
We were on the couch, tangled together, her feet in my lap, both of us scrolling on our phones. She went still. What is it? I asked. Nothing. Blair. She turned her screen toward me. An Instagram post. Her ex Jason. With her, his new girlfriend.
Blonde.
Gorgeous. Tagged at a lake house with a caption that read, "The real thing." Finally. Okay, I said. And she frowned. He never posted me. Not once. We dated for a year. And now he's doing this. Are you jealous? No, she said quickly.
Too quickly.
I'm angry. Because I thought I was the problem. He made me feel like I wasn't enough. Like I was cold or confusing or too complicated. And now he's doing photo dumps with a girl who probably doesn't even know he once said queerness was a college phase. I put my phone down. Do you still want his approval?
No, she snapped.
I want to forget he existed. I want to erase all the years I spent doubting myself because of people like him. Then let's make better memories, I said. Let's drown out the noise with something that's real. Something that makes him irrelevant.
She looked at me.
Like what? I stood, took her hand, and pulled her into the bedroom. Like me making you forget your name. Riley, you're mine, I whispered against her mouth. Let me remind you. We made love like we were trying to erase every bruise the past had left. Slow, tender,
wild.
When she came undone beneath me, she whispered, "This is what real feels like." And I knew I'd never need another kind of proof. There's something surreal about watching the person you once loved in silence now walk across a room just to kiss you. About feeling her hands slide around your waist when she thinks you're distracted. About hearing her call you baby, like it's the most natural thing in the world. There were nights I used to lie awake just imagining what her mouth would feel like against mine. Now she kissed me so often I could taste her in my dreams. But having Blair as mine wasn't just magic and heart-fluttering declarations. It was learning her in new ways. In ways I hadn't known I needed. The realness of it had started to settle into our routines, into the way we moved around each other in the mornings, half-dressed and sleepy-eyed. Into the way she'd steal a fry off my plate without asking, then kiss the corner of my mouth like that made up for it. Into the way we now had a shared laundry basket and toothbrushes side by side. Loving Blair in private had been all tension and yearning and what-ifs. Loving her in the open, living with her, waking up beside her. It was different. It was raw and complicated and messily beautiful. We'd started talking about moving again. Not just into a different apartment, but something bigger. Something with more light. More space for the life we were building. Blair had fallen in love with the idea of a place with a balcony. "I want to drink coffee with you outside," she said one morning, curled into my side, wrapped in a blanket. "I want to hang twinkly lights and keep plants we'll probably forget to water." "I want a big bathtub," I said. "And a bedroom with 2 windows." "And a dog," she added. "Eventually. A big one."
No.
"Something small. Something chaotic. Something that matches you." I gasped, mock offended. "I am not chaotic." "You literally sent a fake secret admirer text that blew up your entire life." "Okay. Fair. But we were happy. For the first time in a long time, deeply, peacefully happy. That was the scariest part. Because when you're queer, when you fought tooth and nail for every scrap of love and softness, happiness can feel like a countdown. Like something is waiting around the corner to remind you that you don't get to have it easy. And maybe that's why the news hit so hard. Blair got called into her manager's office on a Thursday afternoon. She came home early, eyes hollow, silence heavy around her. I was cooking something simple, pasta and garlic bread, music low in the background. I turned around the second I heard the door click shut. Hey, you're home, wait. What happened?
She didn't speak.
Just walked into the kitchen, dropped her bag onto the floor, and collapsed into a chair. Blair? They didn't say it was because of us.
Of me.
But it was.
What?
I rushed to her, kneeling in front of her, taking her hands in mine. Talk to me. The promotion. The one I've been working toward for 2 years. They gave it to Rachel. Rachel. I blinked. You mean Rachel who started, 5 minutes ago, and thinks TikToks are a marketing strategy? She gave a weak laugh.
Yeah.
That one. Did they say why? Just said she had the right image. My stomach dropped. They didn't. They did. Her voice cracked. It's because I've been too visible, too vocal, too queer. But that's not legal. It's not technically discrimination, she said, shaking her head. They'll spin it. Say it's performance-based. Say Rachel's fresh energy is what they needed. I sat back, my whole body buzzing with rage. I'm going to burn that place to the ground. Please don't, she said, smiling through her pain. I need you out of jail. No, seriously, Blair. You deserve better. You've worked harder than anyone I know. I know. She looked at me then, but knowing that doesn't make it easier. I climbed into her lap, arms around her neck, and kissed her forehead. We'll figure this out. What if this keeps happening? Then we keep fighting. What if I'm not strong enough? You're stronger than anyone I've ever met. Her arms wrapped around me, and we sat there like that, the kitchen quiet except for the low hum of the burner and the bubbling pot. That night, we didn't talk about it. We didn't have to. We just lay in bed, curled into each other, letting the silence say what we couldn't. That weekend, we looked at new apartments. She wore sunglasses and a hoodie and looked like she hadn't slept in days. But when we walked into the third listing, a bright place with exposed brick, tall windows, and a little balcony, she turned to me with something new in her eyes.
Hope.
You see it? I asked. Yeah, she said slowly. I think I do. Then let's start over. She nodded. I want this.
Us.
A future that no one else gets to write but me. We signed the lease 2 days later. We packed our life into boxes, laughing at the things we found. Old photos, love notes on napkins, the hoodie I stole from her a year ago and never gave back. Moving was hell, like always. But that first night in the new place? We danced barefoot in the empty living room, the only light coming from the city outside the windows. She held me close, her chin on my shoulder, her voice soft in my ear. Thank you for loving me before I knew how to love myself. I closed my eyes. Thank you for choosing me after you figured it out. We didn't need a ring yet. We didn't need forever written on paper. We had now. And now was enough. Because once upon a time, I sent a stupid prank text to the girl I never thought would love me back.
And now?
She was everything. There's something about starting over in a new place that makes you believe you can rewrite everything. Your routines, your fears, even the way you love each other. Our new apartment was still half empty, filled with stacks of boxes and the echo of our laughter as we tried to figure out where to put things. The walls were bare. The couch hadn't arrived. We ate pizza on the hardwood floor our first night in, wrapped in blankets, wine balanced on a cardboard box, and her legs resting over mine like they'd always belonged there. She looked around the space like she was seeing something bigger than what was in front of us. It's weird, she whispered. What is? I asked, picking a piece of pepperoni off her slice. I feel like we've done everything backward. We fell in love before we even admitted we liked each other. We moved in together before we called each other girlfriends. Now we're here, building a life that looks like something married people do, but we've never talked about the next step. The next step? I echoed, heart kicking into overdrive. She didn't look at me right away, just picked up her wine, took a sip, and stared at the skyline through the window.
Yeah.
Like, do you want forever with me, Riley? My mouth went dry. Are you asking? She finally turned, and her eyes were softer than I'd ever seen.
Not yet.
Not asking. Just wondering.
Just dreaming out loud.
Because lately, I can't picture my life without you in it. I leaned in, cupped her jaw, and kissed her so slow, so deeply, that she sighed into my mouth. I already decided that, I whispered. Before I even sent that stupid text. I was already yours. I still can't believe that's how this all started. She grinned against my lips. You catfished me. I did not. I sent you a beautiful, anonymous, emotionally devastating message from the depths of my pathetic little bisexual heart. You lied to me. I loved you. And you're lucky I didn't press charges. You're lucky I kept texting. I shot back, and she laughed so hard she spilled wine on the blanket. That night we made love on the floor, the city outside our window and nothing but us inside the room. She kept whispering my name like a prayer, like it was the only thing anchoring her to the present. And when she fell asleep afterward, her face pressed against my shoulder, her fingers curled loosely in mine, I stared at the ceiling and thought I could spend the rest of my life watching her breathe. Weeks passed. The apartment filled with plants and mismatched furniture and grocery lists scribbled in lipstick on the fridge. We fell into new rhythms, breakfast together when we could, goodbye kisses before work, texts at lunch, forehead kisses before sleep. It was quiet, solid, good. So good it scared me. One Sunday, she woke me up at sunrise. Come with me. Where? You'll see. I was groggy, barefoot, wearing her hoodie and my sweatpants. She took me to the rooftop of our building. The city was pink and sleepy beneath us, the air cool and clean. She pulled a folded blanket from under her arm, spread it out on the concrete, and sat down. We're gonna watch the sun come up? I asked.
No, she said.
We're gonna talk. I froze.
About what?
About what happens next. I sat beside her. Waited. I got offered a new job, she said. A better one. At a startup. More freedom. More queer women in leadership. It feels like somewhere I could actually grow without hiding who I am. That's amazing, I said slowly. So, why do you look like you're about to cry? Because it's in Chicago. My stomach sank.
Oh.
I haven't accepted yet. I haven't said yes. Because I don't want to leave you here. I grabbed her hand. Who said you're leaving me? I don't want to ask you to leave your life for me. And I don't want to wake up without you. Riley, if you want to go, I said, hard in my throat. Then I'm going with you. She stared. You'd move with me? You're my life, Blair. It doesn't matter where we live. As long as it's with you. Her eyes filled. You do that for me? I'd do anything for you. Just promise me this is where you want to be. It is, she whispered. With you always. We kissed with the sun rising behind us, the world waking up just as our future stretched out in front of us. 2 weeks later, we packed again. This time with more purpose. More joy. More knowing.
She got the job.
I transferred to a clinic near the new place. We signed a lease for an apartment with a bigger kitchen and a real bathtub and yes, a little balcony for coffee mornings. Our families visited. Her mom hugged me for the first time like she meant it. Her dad called me part of the family. Emily flew out for a weekend and cried when she saw how happy we were. I always knew this was endgame, she said. You two were inevitable. And one night, a quiet Thursday with nothing remarkable about it, Blair pulled me into the living room, dropped to one knee, and held out a silver band with her lip trembling. I know we didn't plan this. I know we did everything out of order. But I've never been more sure of anything in my life than I am about you. Will you marry me? I couldn't breathe.
Couldn't speak.
I just nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks as I whispered, Of course I will. We kissed, laughing and crying and tangled together on the carpet like the world could fall away and we wouldn't notice. You know it's wild, she said later, curled against my chest.
What?
You fell in love with me thinking I'd never love you back. And now I'm planning the rest of my life around you. That's not wild, I murmured. That's what happens when you risk everything for someone you believe in. Well, she said, smirking, thank God for that stupid prank. Thank me for that stupid prank. Okay, thank you. For loving me first. for sending the text that changed my entire life. Anytime, I whispered. Forever, if you want. I do. It rained on our wedding day. Not a soft, romantic drizzle. Not the kind that makes you want to dance barefoot under the sky. It poured. Torrential. Thunder. Flash floods. My hair was a mess, the venue's backup generator cut out twice, and someone stepped on the hem of my dress 30 seconds before the ceremony started. And I'd never been happier in my entire life. Because across the room, in a fitted white suit with rain curling the edges of her golden hair, stood Blair. Blair. My best friend. My worst-kept secret. The girl who once laughed off the idea of being in love with me, then showed up years later with a ring and a shaking voice and a promise to spend forever with someone who used to be her roommate and her prankster and her not-so-secret admirer. I still can't believe this started with a text, she whispered when we met under the canopy, soaked and breathless, hands gripping each other like the world might end. You still think it was a prank? I teased, wiping a raindrop off her cheek. No, she said, smiling. It was fate disguised as a joke. Our guests stood holding umbrellas in mismatched colors, laughing, cheering, crying. Emily was already sobbing before we even said our vows. Blair's mom wore a rainbow brooch and held her dad's hand tighter than I'd ever seen. And me? I looked at Blair and forgot there was anything else in the world but her. You changed me, she said, her voice cracking as she read her vows. You cracked open every part of me I was too afraid to explore. You taught me that love isn't always soft or simple. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it starts with a lie you didn't mean to tell. Sometimes it looks like your best friend on a couch at midnight, texting you from a number you don't recognize, trying to say what her heart's been screaming for years. And I didn't see it. Not then. But I see it now. I see you. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never go unseen again. I cried. Obviously.
So, did she?
My vows were half whispered, half laughed through. I loved you before I understood what love really was. Before I believed I could have it. I loved you when I was terrified to say your name out loud, when I thought all I'd ever get was the safety of your friendship and the ache of every almost. But you gave me everything. You saw me, chose me, loved me back, even when it wasn't easy. And now, every time I wake up next to you, every time I hear you laugh in the next room, every time you call me babe like it's always belonged to me, I know I've already won. We kissed. The kind of kiss that echoed, that soaked into our skin, that felt like a full-circle moment so loud it drowned out the thunder. And when we turned to face our family and friends, wives, now legally, loudly, irrevocably, it felt like something had healed in both of us. After the ceremony, we danced barefoot on the wet wooden deck, rain still falling in silver sheets. Blair twirled me once, caught me by the waist, and whispered, "Remember when I said I'd find whoever sent me that message? You found her." "No," she said, lips brushing my jaw. "She found me." Later, curled up in our hotel suite, wrapped in blankets and each other, she kissed the inside of my wrist where my tattoo still sat, one we'd gotten together months earlier.
It was a tiny paper airplane.
Hers pointed west. Mine pointed east. We always said it meant we'd find our way back to each other no matter where life took us. You ready for forever? I asked. God, yes, she said, pulling me closer. Forever with you is the easiest decision I've ever made. Even if I forget to rinse the dishes? Especially then. We spent our honeymoon in a quiet cabin in Vermont. No Wi-Fi, no pressure, just slow mornings and longer nights, and her head on my chest while the fire crackled and the snow fell outside. And sometimes, when we were quiet, when I caught her watching me like she still couldn't believe I was real, she'd whisper, "Text me." Now, I'd ask, smiling. "Yeah," she'd say. "Like you did that night. Just once more." So I'd open my phone, type a single line, and hand it to her. "You don't know me, but I've loved you for a long time, and I hope someday you'll love me too." She always read it the same way, with a smile that split her whole face, with tears welling in her eyes, with her arms pulling me in like she never planned to let go. "I do," she'd whisper. "God, I do." And now, every time I hear her laugh in the next room, or feel her fingers link with mine on some random Tuesday afternoon, or see her wedding ring glinting in the light while she folds laundry and hums off-key, I remember how it started. A prank, a risk, a single anonymous text. And I realize it wasn't a mistake. It was the bravest thing I ever did. Because I didn't just prank my straight best friend. I found the love of my life. And she found me too. Thank you so much for your support, whether it's by liking, commenting, sharing, or sending your super thanks. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next video.